Hey there, and welcome to the Brittany Wheeler Show. Join Brittany as she interviews incredible people whose stories will uplift you and remind you the life you long for is just ahead. Buckle up for an inspirational ride to your best life. Take it away, Britt.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Brittany Wheeler Show. I am so excited to have you guys today, and I am just as eager to be having the conversation that you all are listening to. I could go on and on and on about why I'm excited, but I know that at the end of this conversation, like always, one person is going to be blessed. And this is an incredible example of an ordinary person living an extraordinary life. So I'm going to jump in and introduce her because I want to spend as much time as we can in the meat and potatoes of it. And so she's a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a former physician's assistant, an entrepreneur, an author, a podcast host, a leader, a professional speaker, a servant heart, and most importantly, a sister in Christ. So please welcome my mentor and someone I've known for a decade as a result of her leadership, her servant heart, and being willing to say yes as to why I am so many things that I am today. So please welcome Deanna Herrin to the Brittany Wheeler Show.
Thank you, Brittany. What an introduction. I just have to make one correction.
Yes.
I am not called grandmother.
Okay.
I'm a Coco. So there's a very distinct difference.
I apologize. That is a title that should have a trademark symbol right next to it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for saying yes and being willing to have this conversation. This is truly an honor, and you are a seasoned podcast host and leader. And so this is not foreign to you, but this is definitely something that I am tickled about. So thank you for being here.
Yes, absolutely.
So the next part of the segment we go into, which is kind of adapted a little bit, because when I first started interviews, it was a lot of people that I knew and loved and had relationships with. And as we've entered this new recording season, a lot of these people are people that I've never, I don't have a close relationship with. And even though I have, known of you and you've been such like a degree separated in my life for a decade, over a decade now, there's this newness, this sense of, okay, well, I don't know her exactly. There's so much more to know and to uncover. And so originally I would pass off to my guests to share how we know each other. But at this time, I want to pass off to you. Obviously, we shared the health and wellness business, but I would just love to know what enticed you to say yes to this podcast. 'Cause that's an element that I've never asked my previous guests before.
Well, first of all, it was you. And after listening to some of your podcasts, I'm like, absolutely, I agree. I have to be on board with what you're doing. And I love what you're doing. And I love the message that you have. And I believe in your content. And I'm always happy to share with people that I love and adore.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm like fangirling over here. And, again, you as a host and, you know what it means when someone says, I listened to an episode, it's like they just bought you, a 4-course meal because you put so much time and effort and love and consistency, right? And discipline into creating the content and sharing it. And so I'm so grateful that you took that time to get to hear some of our guests and to get to feel what I feel and what I'm trying to share and what I believe God is using me for. And it's blowing me away at what the response is and just ordinary people living extraordinary lives. And, if someone can relate to your story because they are a physician's assistant or they know what it's like to raise a family under immense pressure and structure and stress, like if they see you can do it, right, then like this will give them the hope and the faith and the inspiration to potentially take those next steps for themselves. And it gets me so excited to think about like my yes to this podcast, to creating it, to just sharing and being a steward of these stories, how many lives I will never, ever meet across the globe that will be blessed by just one episode, not necessarily every single one, but just one episode. So it gets me giddy for God to feel and to be excited about what he has gifted me with. So thank you for being on.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that don't know you, and I'm really excited to know more of you. And so you share, when I was doing a lot of research, you share in your work that your childhood was unstable. And honestly, when I heard that at the age of 13, I was like, oh my gosh, like that was me. There was an element of me that could relate to you. And you had to step into adulthood really, really quickly. What was it like growing up as young Deanna? And do you even think she would recognize you now?
Yes, I know she recognizes me now. I've done a lot of work on that for sure. You know, growing up, just long story short, we were very poor
Mm.
and we moved several different times. I think I went to 12 different schools in 8 years. And so the longest I was ever in one school was actually eighth grade to my senior year. And so there was a lot of insecurity there. My mom was married multiple times, so I had many different stepdads in my home. And I'll tell you,
Mhm.
I worked through a lot of that in my early adulthood, like,
Yeah.
early high school, college. And it really wasn't until um, I became a leader in our health and wellness company when I started to recognize that there were so many women that put me on a pedestal
Mm.
because of the position that I was in. And they really saw my life as being perfect because from the outside, everyone looks at you and thinks, "Oh my gosh, this must have been so easy for her. Look what she's done. She just looks picture perfect and life is good and she's got a beautiful family." And it was that realization at that moment. And I just remember I was in an elevator in Vegas and there were some girls that walked in and they hesitated to even say something to me. And I reached my hand out and I introduced myself and, we chatted for a little bit. And my husband was in the elevator with me and I said, people need to know my story because I know that there are women out there who believe that they can't be where I am because of some, you know, things that they've been hiding from their childhood. Nobody has a perfect childhood.
Mm.
And it was shortly after that when I heard God tell me that I needed to write a book about my story. I've heard God's voice audible um, 3 times, and that was one of them. And it was loud. And the voice is really, really loud when it's something that I know it had to be loud, or I was going to deny that that
Yeah.
was really the
Brush it
voice.
off. Exactly.
Um, but yeah, I look back at it now. I used to look at it from, poor me, woe is me. Why didn't I have the perfect childhood? But the way that I look at it to, at this point in my life is I'm so extremely grateful for all of it
Mhm.
because of my childhood and my upbringing, I am the woman that I am today. I've worked through so many different beliefs and issues in my life that have absolutely changed me
Mm.
and evolved and grown me closer to God for sure. So if there's someone out there who, feels like, I just don't know that I could ever see it from that perspective, I want you to know that that's why situations happen in our life. They're really there to grow us and refine us through the fire. That's really where our true essence
Yeah.
is designed to shine.
Yeah. And, I think, um, I don't know about you, but I wrote my book. It's in Google Docs. I was honoring God and wrote it and just kind of waiting to see what those next steps are. But I remember just the therapy that I went through writing that, and I can imagine there was an element of that because of the topic of your book is just unbecoming all the things that you had become to that point in your story. And it was it was honestly some of the most healing work that I didn't know that I would experience, and even just thinking about it now, realizing that I interview all types of different people from all different backgrounds, and yet I'm able to relate in some way, shape, or form or feel connected to them because of those past experiences. But it's those past experiences that I had to heal through in order to see connection, right? Or be grateful for. And I just shared with a gentleman the other day who has a challenging past. And I asked him, I was like, you want God, you want to grow and to elevate, but have you forgiven yourself for those things? Because the enemy is going to use that. And
Mhm.
God's not going to give you that influence. He's not going to, allow you to come into place to influence other people if the enemy can get a hold of those past experiences. And so for me, that I can speak to, I had to heal through those things because otherwise I wouldn't be able to stay on an episode and talk about my, experience of sleeping around or my daddy issues or growing up at 13 and cooking for my family because my stepdad was an alcoholic. And same thing, I had 3 high schools in 4 years. I can say that so matter of factly now
Right.
because it is a matter of fact. And I have that gratitude towards the experience. And again, like you said, being able to help someone else see that
Yeah.
themselves in it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So as long as I have obviously known your story, and thank you for sharing that experience in Vegas, because I think that anybody that is listening that is in any career, right? It doesn't even matter whether it's network marketing or others, and you have a mentor, you have someone that is in top leadership that holds that position. I think it's so important for us to realize that there's so much more to them, right? Than that title that they hold, the job that they do, the business that they have. And I love that in that moment, you just recognize there was so much more to uncover. And whoever is going to listen to that, hopefully they'll see their superiors or other people in their business or celebrities. I mean, we don't have time to get into that, right? Or athletes that if we put them on a pedestal, we idolize them. It's humans are not capable of handling that. We just weren't created that way. And so I love that you shared that vulnerably, and hopefully someone else can hear that. And so, you have never been adverse to hard work. I mean, like that's just something I've always admired about you is just the willingness of doing that. And at one point you were working as a PA, 60 plus hours a week. You're raising 2 kids. Your husband had a super demanding job. So you were like literally what I feel like a lot of women are experiencing right now, which is this superhero mom complex. I have a lot of friends right now that are in their 30s and 40s raising children, feeling like they have to be every single thing and have the job. It's so taxing. Did you ever, as it relates to your career, did you ever dream of becoming a PA? And at what point were you dreaming, in general? When did that start for you?
Well, I've honestly always been a dreamer. So I knew that I wanted something different than the way that I was raised. And I knew I wanted to help people. So I always wanted to be in medicine. That was always my career path. But when I found out about the physician's assistant program, it made sense because I was paying for my own college education, living on my own, making my car payment, waiting tables, doing all the things. And PA was going to be less expensive than medical school. And so I just knew I could do it. I never even second guessed it. It was just, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I absolutely flourished in school. It was completely 100% where I was supposed to be. And I absolutely loved it. I loved every single patient that I walked in that room. I knew they had a story and I wanted to know that story. And I knew if I asked the right questions and found out the right piece of the story, all the puzzle pieces were going to fit together.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely an amazing, amazing journey for me. And I learned so many things while I was practicing medicine. The downside was when we started having a family and, young kids, I was working so much that I was missing a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
And my heart started to really, hurt and think about, okay, there's got to be something out there where I can be at home with my kids, but I can earn the income that I'm accustomed to. I know there is. There has to be. And I just believed it. I just believed it was going to come. And it did not come the way that I thought it was going to come, but it did show up. So I've always been a dreamer and absolutely a hard worker. But I'm going to tell you another side of that. That version of Deanna Herrin is no longer there. I still am a hard worker, but I work from a very different perspective today. Back in my younger years, I worked out of a trauma response to prove my worth. And so I kept busy because the achievements, the accolades, the titles, the attaboys, those drove me to believe that I was worthy. And so, that's a never ending cycle,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Yes.
just on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And it got me really far. But there is no such thing as happiness when. That doesn't exist. We have to really understand that happiness is now. Happiness is what we see around us right here in this moment. Because 2 years ago, I wanted exactly what I have now. So why would I stop wanting what I have and have happiness for everything around me? Because everything that I see in my surroundings, that is abundance. I'm lacking nothing. And so what I teach women is how to live in the present moment and be grateful for what you have now. What I had when I was in college, the life that I had, I was still very, very happy. I was still happy.
Yeah.
And so it was the chase of when. And we have to be so careful for believing that something in the external world is going to bring that emotion. It doesn't. And what I've learned and what I've uncovered in myself is that emotion of happiness. We have to uncover all of those perceived limitations of ourselves, of unworthiness, and recognize that we are worthy just the way we are. And we will stop seeking that happiness in a man, in money, in material items, anything outside of this world. And so I love bringing women back to really who they are and understanding the abundance of what is right now. So that was a long answer to that
That
question,
was
but
great.
yeah, I needed to say that because, yes, I still work hard, but I work hard from a very different perspective. And it's not from, look at me and pat me on the back.
Yeah.
I'm truly in the area of service, and whatever happens, amazing.
Yeah. And I love that because I feel like any person can relate to the constant striving for more if there isn't that grounded source of worthiness, right? That comes from yourself. And I did read Jamie Kern Lima's book with a group of women, and I just love that calling out where it's like, okay, well, your higher power, for us, it's God, believes that you're worthy. So if you don't believe you're worthy, you're calling him a liar? Like, I loved that. I was like, wow, that is just such a bold way of leveling up and believing. And sometimes you have to, it's going to take a minute to believe. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and feel that, but it's doing the work to get to that place. And you mentioned like being that hardworking, something I've been sharing with a couple different entrepreneurs that I've come into. I can't always tell you exactly why it is I feel like I share. I'm going to say the Holy Spirit. I can see this like rat race that they're running. And I had the fortunate opportunity to go to a rest retreat, and the opportunity of what does it look like to work from a place of rest? And so work from a place of deserving and worthy, but also free of stress and free of anxiety. And so similar to you about working hard, I can look back and see so many times that I was working to work and
Mhm,
working to get to the next place without even really trusting the process or trusting the footsteps. I was just doing to do it. And
mhm,
what it cost me was probably more rejection in life than I ever could imagine because I was never meant to potentially, go down that path or have that experience. But because of this high performing energy not stewarded and harnessed properly, I just started, tearing down walls and kicking open doors that potentially were never for me. And so it has been a game changer in the space of worthiness, but also like, why am I making these decisions? Like, why am I, as an entrepreneur, why am I reaching out to this person? Why am I asking somebody to be on the podcast and trusting that instead
mhm,
of entrusting the peace that comes from that decision
mhm,
versus this anxiousness or this potential like disconnect between the flesh and the spirit. And, if you don't believe in God or you don't have a deep knowing or maybe a newer relationship, like that will come in time of understanding some of this, you know, for me, as I've gotten closer to God, understand this deeper knowing of what it means, what it feels like when like I feel peace within in my spirit, but then the world or like someone told me that I should fights against that. And so even as it relates to what you're saying with hardworking, when you shift that and you
Mm.
found that complete 180, like, do you feel like you made more progress by switching that or forward movement or,
Yeah.
whatever you would define as your version of abundance or success by switching that around?
Yeah. So the difference is, and what you're saying is, the difference is operating from a place of fear. So working from a place of fear is put your body in fight or flight constantly. And that's where you don't have the peace. And that's what I was constantly doing. Fear that I wasn't enough. So let me go to that next level. Let me do that next thing. Let me buy that next purse, whatever that
Yeah.
was. Um, it's a different place to operate from, of a place of just abundance and worthiness of now. Like, I don't have to prove my worth. Do I still set big goals? Absolutely. Yes. Why would I not? I want to continue to walk on that path of growth and evolution of who God created me to be, and the people that I'm here to make a difference in their lives, and the people that are going to make a difference in my life. And I can't do that unless I'm walking that path continually. And so as I'm walking that path, I'm growing and I'm evolving and I'm growing to the point where I can be the bigger bridge for people to walk across that bridge for the transformation that they are here to receive through the work that I'm called to do. And so when you first start on your journey, and for those of you who are entrepreneurs, I just want you to understand that you look at some people and you're like, wow, how can they manage 5,000 people? Or how can they have a team this big? Or how can they have an organization this big? And you have to understand that the growth and evolution of the person in the beginning, they could probably only handle 2 or 3. But as they grow and evolve and they learn more, their bridge starts to get bigger and you're able to hold more space for more people. And so I never forget that entrepreneurship and your journey, whatever that happens to be, the destination is actually not the goal. The destination is the growth and evolution of yourself for you to really understand who you are. Because the stories that come up about ourselves along the journey are not there to stop you and prevent you from reaching your ultimate destination. They're actually there to show you, this is not who God says I am. Where did this story come from? And most of us are not aware of the stories. And there are so many entrepreneurs who quit because the stories that war inside their head, those thoughts of inadequacy, stole the show. And it's unfortunate because they're really not true. And that's why we're here, is to understand that those are stories that we just made up about ourselves from certain situations from my childhood. I made up stories that I'm not important, that I'm dismissed. And, working through those stories changed my life. And so, yeah, it's a definite different place. I don't have to prove myself anymore.
Such a freedom in that, right?
Mhm.
Such a almost just like you're able to see the joy now, like you said. You're able to be almost immersed in gratitude. I mean, we're human, right? We're going to have moments where we trip or whatever, but I do find in this space this I find myself stepping into gratitude and joy faster and easier in this season of life than I
Mhm.
was in previous seasons. And I think you and I talked offline. For me, also, that was just going sober 3 years ago, and other reasons, that evolution that you mentioned of really like what is that centering and who is defining your worth and what is defining your worth, and when you're stripped of all of these things, these idols, these things that potentially you give value to, and it's just you, and for me it's me and God. Like there's this rawness, but this rebuilding, this
Mhm.
restructuring. And I was telling you offline, like, I mean, I've always been a little apprehensive, even as an entrepreneur. When I first became an entrepreneur at 24, love the idea of vision boards, love affirmations. However, they've also been commercialized in a way that I think gets away from the root of what they're meant to do. And so I, for many years, created a vision board, but I wasn't doing the work to create the visions. And so they were just dreams. And so I really tell people, if you're not willing to do the work for the stuff you put on that board, then don't make the board because it's a waste of time because it's no longer a vision. It's just a dream. Just kind of keep it in your head.
Mhm.
But also affirmations, it gets a bad rap. But when you can identify that thought and you can then create the truth of it, because the subconscious thought is a lie, and then you can create that truth. And that's the affirmation. That's power. I think sometimes for me, when I've experienced affirmations, it's been kind of like saying something to to create positivity and enlightenment, which is great. But it wasn't really getting to the root cause of what I was actually thinking. So it worked for a little bit. And after being an entrepreneur for 11 years, I'm saying things to myself that have been so deeply rooted in my subconscious mind that in order for me to continue to evolve, as you mentioned, and continue to stay in the space of worthiness and grow in that, I've got to rewrite what's going on in there because it's not the truth. It's going to steal, kill, and destroy. And I think there's a lot of people, just as entrepreneurs, as you said, that it becomes too overwhelming and they walk
Mhm.
away, um, or they don't even recognize it's happening and they've made a decision that doesn't make sense and potentially could self-sabotage, all that they're doing in whatever business they have. Um, I mentioned earlier too about the the superhero mom complex, and you like shook your head as like, wow, okay, yeah. What was, because I think there's a lot of, and I feel for my friends and there's such compassion. My heart bleeds for them of this, being a working professional and, a partner in the finances, and also this longingness to be near their children, but then also show up at every single thing at school and show up for every single sporting event. What do you, what did you experience yourself, right, raising your two kids in the way that you experienced? And then what would you wish that you knew, like that now from all of that you experienced?
Yeah. So, that's such a great question. So in my personal experience as a young bride, I took on roles that I thought that a wife should be. And I think sometimes that's romanticized a little bit. And we believe, that it's going to be this happily ever after and so forth. Our prince is going to sweep us off our feet, et cetera. And I definitely have an amazing, amazing man in my life. We've been married almost 33 years.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
And yeah, um, but he took on certain roles that he brought in from his family, and I took on certain roles that came from what I believed I should do as a family, from my family experience. And a lot of times we're not really taught that you both bring in situations, circumstances, and old wounds into the marriage, and they may not. You're there to actually heal each other through those core wounds. Um, so my what my mom did, what she emulated for me was just, do it all, be it all, wear yourself out, be busy, go, go, go constantly. And now my mom didn't work outside the home. So I was practicing medicine as a physician's assistant. I was building a business, two small kids, a husband that traveled. He was a collegiate volleyball coach. And I made homemade meals because I didn't believe in takeout food. I I eventually relaxed on that. Uh, but it was a lot. And Mark and I have talked about this so many times. I just recently launched a marriage program from my side, healing my side of our marriage through the resentments and so forth. But we have talked about, if early on, if you could really establish, okay, who is going to do this? Whose responsibility is this? Whose responsibility is this? And do you want to do that? Do you want, is there some things that we can, let go, not have to be so perfect at everything, and really have that discussion about, okay, do you really want to make all the meals homemade? Do you really want to, work 60 hours and clean the house and I did everything, pay the bills, all of that. Um, And it wasn't because I was trying to be super mom. It was because that's what was emulated and modeled for me. So we do things very differently today, very, very differently. Obviously, we don't have kids in the home, but we've chilled. Both of us have chilled quite a bit. But you don't know what you don't know. And looking back, there's a lot of things that, we definitely would have done different. But I don't regret any of it because it has grown me, and I was there, I was available, I was with my kids. Um, and it was worth the work. It really was worth the work. Now I tell my daughter who's getting married, don't model after me. You choose the parts that
Yeah.
you
Do it
want, and they
differently. Learn from me.
do it differently. Yeah, and she definitely has her own, views of how she wants to, and she kind of runs the house as well. But yeah, it's thank you for asking that question because I know a lot of women feel like they have to do all be all, and we run into these. Where this is one of the most common things. Number one, we build up resentment because we
Mhm.
don't use our voice,
Right.
and
Communicate.
uh, we just hush. And then not only do we build up resentment, we get super, super frustrated because we feel like we're not appreciated
Yeah.
and because we're doing all the things. So
Yeah.
that's the part that I really deal with in the marriage program.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds incredible, and I'm excited at the end for, people to be able to access your information and how you can support and come alongside them, and I actually I've been reading John Maxwell's book, Running with Giants, and
Mhm.
I've been reading the chapter and then going into the story in the Bible and reading the biblical story, which has made this, like, really rich experience, and I was reading, couldn't tell you the exact part of the book, but, I was reading the story of Abraham and Sarah, and, I thought I was like, if Abraham would have told his wife what God told him about what they were promised, she probably would have made a different decision about then making the decision for him to, sleep with another woman and have another person's baby. I was like, this was a very, I wonder how many people have missed that biblical marriage tip of just that communication piece. And I chuckle thinking about it because we always think, I think those that understand the Bible and know that story, they think of like the promise, right? But there's so
Mm.
much more stuff that happened between when God told Abraham and then when they had their child. And that was just a nugget that I was like, dang, we gotta communicate more in those relationships because
Right.
potentially Sarah may have not done that. But it just from what I experienced in that story. And what you said was so true. There is this resentment, there is this, you know, going above and beyond. This ability to nurture, I think, naturally comes for most women.
Mm.
And so it's not that we ask because we want to, we do it because we love to. But to your point, if you were not doing the things that you didn't like to do, right, then there wouldn't be that space for resentment to build up. And I remember I'm so grateful for entering entrepreneurship at such a young age. You mentioned earlier, just didn't know how it was going to come. And I definitely did not expect that, my first time walking into a business meeting, I was wearing athletic shorts and it was a business attire. And I was like,
Mhm.
this is not at all, I had no idea what I was walking into. And, um, what has framed me so much is the experiences. And at 24, I was learning from women that were twice my age on, how they were raising their kids and being moms and just this freedom and this safe space of like, we can't do it all. So while I watch women my age now navigate that, I had been experiencing some freedom and some just reminders amongst our community when I was 24 through now of like, okay, to your point, what what don't you like to do? But also, can you exchange that? If you don't love to cook, then what kind of resources are available? There's so many amazing things now that you could, like, hey, go get a fresh box or whatever they're called, or can you invest in a housekeeper to come twice a month? Like, obviously, do within your means. But if that means that you get to have more time with your kids, or you get to sit down and eat dinner together, I think it's this riddle burden of like feeling the need to take it all on. But there's so many, thank goodness for entrepreneurship and ingenuity, right? There's so many creative ways that we can come at it to exchange one thing for the other and being okay to do that. I think that guilt comes on too for a lot of women.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
We've obviously been talking a lot about Christ, and I'm excited to hear this, for what your relationship, like what was your relationship with Christ growing up? And I guess I'd love to know, like, when do you feel like you stepped into this calling that you're now in now that you feel like he's called you to?
So, growing up, I grew up in a Baptist church, until there was a little bit of drama in the church, and then my parents walked away from that, and that was at 6 years old, and we didn't go to the church after that.
Okay.
But I really have always had, a strong faith. I just knew that I knew that I knew that I am being taken care of all the time, and it wasn't until, college to where I stepped foot back into, a church sanctuary. Um, and it was after, uh, probably my first year and a half in college where, I majored in drinking, and I got really, really good at it.
Same.
And I thought, this probably isn't the life that I want for forever. And I know that there's something more for me. And goodness gracious, I'm spending all this money on my college, and, you know, and I'm getting really good at one thing, and that one thing is not going to serve me. So I walked into, the church sanctuary at that time, and it was shortly after that time I'd actually walked away from a relationship that was really pretty toxic, lots of partying, etc. And just made the decision. Okay, I'm going to finish college. I'm going to go to PA school. I took a year and a half off, and I just was like, I was laser focused. Like, I just knew this was going to happen. I'm going to make it happen. I'm laser focused. And I literally would go to school 8 to noon, study until 3, go to work, wait tables. And a lot of times I was on the shift that didn't get off until 2.
Mm.
And it was just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. And I met my husband shortly after that. So everything was just starting to, really, really come together. But, being someone in college, there was a lot of things that I was missing about my faith and about the stories, et cetera. So I just really got involved in a deeper level, especially after we got married, and just my faith and my belief and the wisdom of everything, just it all started to fall into place. And you know where I am today. So, I built a very successful business, and have been a part of that for 26 years. And there was a point, after my mother passed away. And I know sometimes God has to get our attention through pain. That's where we really are refined. And it was the death of my mom in 2016 that, number one, I got sober. Number two, I God called us to move to this tiny town. I'm a city girl, and I live on 20 acres, and I know that I know that I know that I was brought here for my own healing.
Mm.
And that's when the book process began. And we talked about this before we got on camera. And it was one of the hardest things that I've ever been through. And I, talked about my story so much throughout my life. I've done a lot of counseling over years and years of counseling, but writing that book, it opened me up, and it was real, it was raw, it was emotional, it was painful. And my husband has even said, "Babe, that was like a really, really difficult time for us." And it was, the difference between, you know, counseling, and counseling was amazing for me, but it did a lot of work in my head. And what the book process did for me, and, through other things that I was learning at that time, what the book process did for me was it was healing my body of those emotions that I had stored. So I was releasing those emotions from my body through the tears and the anger and so forth. We store those emotions. People don't realize that they are in your body. Why do we have so many aches and pains and headaches and fatigue? And a lot of that, yes, is what we consume. But there's stored emotions. And so I was releasing that from my body, but I was also healing my heart. So it was just an amazing detox is what it was. And God walked me through that every single step of the way. And after that part for me, there's a purpose in everything. Absolutely purpose. I mean, being hearing that I needed to write a book was one thing, but actually putting my entire life on pen and paper was a whole other thing for people to read. And I actually need to go back and I need to update it because there's so much more that I've learned through the process. But every time I would, sit down to write, I'm like, if it just helps one person, God, I trust you. I'm just going to write my story, and it's here for that one person. And after the book was written, it was very, very clear to me that I was being led in a different path. And the path was, Dan, there are women out here in the world that need to be healed the way that you healed. And it's not just your thoughts. We have to heal the thoughts, but we also have to remove the emotions from the body. Our beliefs that we create when we are between 0 and 7 years old, those beliefs about ourselves, just one that everybody has is I'm not worthy in some form. Those beliefs create our thoughts. Those thoughts play out in our subconscious mind, and everybody has a different story that they're actually saying. So your worthy story could be, I'm not seen. Nobody sees me. And so it's not, our subconscious mind isn't saying, you're not worthy, girl. It's saying, I'm not heard. I'm not seen. I'm not valuable. I'm not precious. Whatever that is, that belief creates your thoughts. Your thoughts create your emotions. Your emotions are here for you to emote the feeling. But what happens when we're younger is stop it, stop it, stop it. Dry your tears. Suck it up, suck it up, suck it up. And I'm not dismissing my childhood, but that's just what was passed down. And so those emotions aren't felt. So they're in your body and they have to be released. So it was very clear that I was being moved in a different direction. It was the third time that I heard God's voice really loud. And it was at a retreat. And I did something very different. I said, we're going to work on our beliefs. And I walked them through an entire experience of that retreat. And then at the end, we broke through their beliefs and we created a new story. And it was when I was in the midst of the circle, breaking through their stories and helping them create the true story of who they are, is when God said, this is why you're here on earth. And when I started walking that path, it was very scary. I mean, very scary because I didn't, yes, I knew all the things that I had done to walk myself through the process and heal. But to actually put pen and paper to it, and it has definitely been a process. So I got certified as a spiritual psychology coach, so I can actually coach women through trauma. But my heart and soul is to actually walk women through the process of let's figure out the thought, rewire the thought. Now let's move it out of your body and let's clear the heart. And so it's a whole body process. And it literally brings me chills just to even talk about the whole process because it's so life-changing for so many women to come to know who they really are. And that's why we're here. Our soul has a purpose.
Yes, 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 yes. And I, I think about, I just was envisioning when you're talking about writing the book. And, for the first, when I moved here to Wilmington, it was really slow to get started for a lot of different things. And I just remember, for me, it wasn't God audibly, but it was you need to write, you need to write, you need to write. And we talked offline about that and just I envisioned myself, I just saw myself sitting in those coffee shops in public spaces, writing out the pain, right? Writing out those emotions like you talked about. And that was for me, I think, the beginning of a new, like a spiritual level of healing. And I've had the opportunity of getting to work with an intuitive healer and life coach and a spiritual healer and getting to understand emotions as it relates to our heart and our spirit. Uh and it was powerful, even going back and recollecting things with my dad and how like this the power of spiritual tethers, and we are connected to people when those tethers break, that influence. So if it is a toxic relationship or challenging, like I remember in 2016, like I um I started to make changes. I've always been a dreamer like yourself. I grew up with a dad who was a dreamer, who grew up I grew up as I would say unhealthy network marketing baby. I grew up with a dad who would try it and didn't have the grit and the discipline to keep going. He didn't have the resilience, and so it would be different companies, different experiences. So when I picked up the torch, everyone around me was like, "Oh my gosh, like it's another experience of my dad." And obviously that is not the case 10 years later. But in 2016, I started to take steps for my own personal growth. And I started to, go to the chiropractor and was changing the way that I was consuming foods. And all of a sudden I looked back, my friend just shared this with me a couple of months ago. And she's like, that she really shared this with me about spiritual tethers. And I was blown away because I could go back to that moment when I was no longer spiritually connected to my father. And that was the beginning of the end of our relationship. And do I regret it? No, because I've been able to get to know my heavenly father as a result of that, because my earthly father was taking up so much space. But when you have that greater understanding and that willingness to learn of how your emotions impact all parts of your body and your heart, like you're mentioning, like that's when that deep work can come and that healing can come. Because like you said, counseling is incredible. And I do believe, I look back and I'm assuming that you can feel this way about yourself, like all the steps that led me to the points, right, where I am now, like it was all those things that opened me up, that refined me, that helped my health, that got me into a place of personal growth. Cause I wouldn't have gone, when I started our health and wellness business, I was 2 months post gastric bypass. I would never have said yes even prior, because I didn't think people like me did that. And so God did some really crazy work. And I talk about it in the book, of the timing of my surgery and all of those things. But that's the kind of stuff that's happened to me over time, of like just those moments of the right time and God's timing. And I never saw it because I wasn't a believer. And so I could never have been talking here with you 11 years ago, right? And all those steps that led me to here have just been compounded over time. So, um, and I want to thank you personally, because there's a lot of things to thank you for. Your yes for our health and wellness company, right? Because that is ultimately like why I'm here, but also for being willing and proud of being a Christian and who you are, because at the core, that is the undercurrent of the organization that I'm a part of. And it is special, and it is raw, and it is real, and it's authentic. And it's how I came to know God. And it's how He interwoven in my life through every time I was praying with a sideline, or every time someone would bring up God, I wasn't walking. And it took 7 years of being sprinkled on through this business and through the community. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that, because it's just as easy to incorporate God as it is not to. And
Right.
it's a choice, especially in business. And especially 26 years ago, when faith and business were not necessarily interwoven in conversations. And people ask me now, they're like, wow, you're so free of talking about it. I'm like, well, I just don't make people feel icky. Like you don't have to make people feel icky to claim your story, to claim your experiences, to claim what you know. Yeah, I'm not claiming your story. I'm not claiming, Joey's story down the street. And I think potentially that's where it's been misused, and
Right.
the name has gotten, you know, perpetually bad in business. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that. Seriously.
Thank you. Yeah. When I started in the business, my sponsor was such a great example for me, with her faith. And so, my faith really grew in that business. It really did, because, you don't know where the next client is going to come from. You don't know what that looks like. And I'm going to tell you, I'm so grateful that I didn't know, because what actually happened in my business was so much greater than I could have ever imagined. And our job really is just to do the work and trust the process because the people are already out there waiting for you. Um, because you are tethered to those people. You will be tethered to those people. They're there. They're on this earth waiting for your yes. And that's super exciting to think about that.
Yeah, I had the opportunity of getting some one-on-one with you before, and just that wisdom of it's already happened, and just
Mhm.
move forward with that. And there's a freedom and then mindset shift for even like, why am I stressing? Like, why am I worried about it? Just go and continue to take those steps until, you start gathering people or experiences or whatever you need in your journey towards, your goals and your visions and your dreams. And um
Yes.
I do love, and I tell people often, because there's a lot of people in my life who are not believers. And I remember when I finally said yes and started walking with God, I knew that the cross that I bear was going to be the fact that I was a unicorn, in a sense, that most of my family and my friends do not know God. And some that do, it's a very different kind of relationship. There's a lot of hurt there. And I just, I find myself a lot of the times like reminding people, like you shared with me earlier, that like those desires and dreams that were placed on your heart, they're not, you didn't make them up. Like they're not, they were placed there for a reason. And I think for a lot of people, when they're waiting for an unanswered, whatever, a baby, I'm still single, still waiting for my husband, but that desire was placed there. And so that is one area of my life where I'm like, all right, God, you do the work because I'm going to work smarter and not harder. And you let me know when he's ready, because I know that that wasn't just some fake idea. That was a desire you put on my heart. And so I remind people of that often, is that like those dreams, those desires were not random, and don't question them. They're placed there for a reason. And you need that reminder because it can feel like you made it up. Like, what was I thinking?
Mhm.
It,
Especially when times get tough.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we second guess that. Yeah.
What would you say, and then I'll ask the last question. What would you say has been some of the most profound structure or resources or disciplines that you've put in place as it relates to this inner work of healing and worthiness?
I think, I'm very disciplined with my morning routine. So I know some people will say, I'm not a morning girl. I'm an evening girl, whatever that is for you. Um, I am a morning girl. So this morning I'm up at 4:40, just, cup of coffee, and I'm always learning and growing. So, whether it's through, um, apps, different version app, I'm always learning and growing. But I think more than anything, one of the things that I kind of have gotten away from more is I am a learner. So I think I'm probably addicted to learning. I love really learning information. Like it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to learn today?
Mhm.
What am I and I do that because I love to share what I learn. And if it's going to help somebody, I love to share that information. But one of the hardest things for me, I am definitely a giver. I don't have a problem giving financially. That's not an issue for me. I have a hard time giving my time. And so where God is working with me right now is just to be still. And I think that's something that's missing in society so much. We don't think that we have time to be still. And I want people to know you don't have time not to be still, because the very relationship that needs to be the most important, you will find in solitude. You will find in stillness. And when I first started, I do breath work, meditation. When I first started meditating, I was all over the place. I was in that work it mode. And so my mind could not calm. I really had a hard time. 3 minutes was pure
Oh,
misery for
yeah,
me
for sure.
because there was this ping, ping, ping. My mind was just going everywhere. And then I started meditating to, apps and so forth. But the real trick is learning to meditate in stillness, like really allowing your mind to still without any noise, calm down and just listen. And just listen. And so that I think that's probably the hardest, but the most beautiful piece of what I've added to my life. And some people think that's so woo woo. Whatever. If it's woo woo, that's great. Um, but that's where I connect. And that's where I hear.
Yeah.
That's where I find that peace, that solitude, where I come back to me. You have to understand that when you talk about tethering, a lot of people don't realize this, but our energy, we give our energy to so many people and places. Just in one day, we have given our energy to the person at the grocery store. We've given a little piece of our energy to our children. We've given a piece of our mind to a friend that was ugly. Whatever that is, our energy is so scattered. And so that stillness is bringing back to you. You got to bring all that stuff back. Your soul is not meant to be in 5,000 different places. That's the tethering that people don't realize is, why are we so tired? Because our energy is, we've given it out in the world and we need to call it all back to who we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what that time does for me.
Oh gosh, I didn't so similar of just like, especially when I was first starting to read the Bible, I was like sentence like all over the place, like just couldn't find stillness in it. And now I crave the silence. Like I get more angry when someone tries to wreck my silence than anything else, because there is something so powerful about nothing and how much that can recharge you. And so I can relate to that so much. And I wonder if this is an element of an epiphany I'm having live. Is, God has definitely called me into this season of rest as it relates to how I work and how I put my energy out and what the priorities are. But I've even found myself really protective of like just even in general what I'm saying yes to as it relates to silence. And again, that could be just stillness in preparation for a busy season ahead, right? That's something that I've kind of feel undercurrent of, is that there's a shifting going to happen and you're going to need all of that energy built up, but also the practice and the discipline and to know when your body needs it. You said earlier, like, God will use things to remind you in the moments. Pain is one of them, experiences. And so if you know how to find stillness in a season that's maybe quiet, you'll know exactly what you need in a season when it's busy, right? Because you'll recognize those signs. And I like literally, like sometimes I'm just like, no, I don't want to talk to you. And that was really hard for me because I'm the girl that, I do what I say I'm going to do and I show up. But now I'm like the girl that's like, oh, I'll respond to you when I'm feeling best, or I'll answer, because again, the other thing that I will share, and then last question, a lot of people don't realize, like, when you're in a season of growing and building and creating something that is bigger than you, every interaction, every experience, every moment, the enemy has the potential to use to kill, steal, and destroy. And so I feel like I have been even more protective in moments when I answer friends' phone calls or people that I love dearly, because because I just don't know, is this going to be something that's going to serve me or not? Am I in a space where maybe I'm having a rougher day emotionally or spiritually, and if I take that call, potentially like that may not serve me. And so I find myself even just being more aware throughout the day of what I let in to me, especially if there are days where I'm feeling it. You and I talked about being sober, and like when we feel, because there is nothing to mute the feeling. And so sometimes I'm not going to let anything in just because I feel like I should, or it's the right thing to do. I have to be very protective of myself. So I just wanted to share that because that is something that for
Yes.
me, I've
Yes.
just been so protective of, honestly. It feels
Yes.
kind of crazy, but it's
For
important.
sure. I mean, as a young mom, they're like, where am I going to find time to sit still? And go to your car.
Yeah.
Go to your car and be still. For me, my husband always, he's like the puppy dog. He always wants to know where I am. And so we just know, he knows that I have this pink towel have no idea where I got it. I think it's to wash your face. I'll put it over my eyes and you'll know. Oh, okay. Be quiet. Don't
Yes.
interrupt. So you just find the time for you to connect to the most important relationship that will impact every other relationship in your life.
Mm, I love that. Last piece of advice that am hoping you can share is what do you wish that someone would have shared with you that maybe you didn't hear at the beginning of unbecoming some of this really deep rooted trauma in your past?
What do I wish that someone would have told me?
Hmm.
Um, you know, I think I had I don't think there is
Okay.
anything that I wish someone would have told me because I look back at my childhood and my life and the things that I went through. There were people that were placed perfectly into my life at the right time.
Yeah.
And I had a woman that was in my life for a very short time that made such an impact in me, just the way that she loved and served. And um she was my aunt by marriage, but she treated me. I mean, I was 5 years old. She treated me like I was her blood.
Mm.
And this woman was going through breast cancer back then. So, that was many, many years ago. So very, very hard time um, for her. And she would sit at her sewing machine and I could see her. She watched me after school. She paid for my kindergarten, a private kindergarten. And I would watch her from the living room and she sat at her sewing machine and she would sew Barbie clothes for me for hours, hours upon hours upon hours. And I mean, when I say she was in my life for a brief moment, it was probably less than a year. And the impact that that woman made in my life that I still think about today and what she did. And it was never anything that she necessarily said. It just was the way that she was. When I walk into situations today, like at a conference or a meeting or a room full of people, what she taught me without ever even saying a word is she taught me, you know what? My job here in this situation is number one, to show up. And number two, be love. Just be love. And so, I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. There were
Mhm.
just little beautiful droplets of people into my life that were divinely placed at the right time, at the right moment. And I don't think it would have made my journey any better than what it was. I absolutely have zero regrets. Zero regrets. Um, because I everything is for our growth and evolution. I truly believe.
What a beautiful story and such a
Mm,
um I yeah, and I love even again because I didn't know God that back then. I mean, my sisters and I were some of the best altar servers. I could recite a mass, but I didn't know
mm,
God, never a relationship with him. And when I wrote the book, I was able to go back and see those moments, those people like you mentioned that were so divinely orchestrated for
yeah.
seasons. And it's so humbling. And so when I pray for friends and their children's, I pray for what I experienced was that divine intervention on the men and women, the coaches, the mentors, the friends, the aunts that were there by, relation that were not necessarily by blood to be there for those individuals because those are the things that, I think about statistics and I often will say that my sisters and I should not really be kind of who we are. We're a product of 3 divorces. We grew up with a single mom and stability, not really a thing. Like there's a lot of things that we could have gotten into with a lot of the wrong people. And it's not it's a God incidence that we all, came to this place. And obviously we're broken and there's healing and work to be done, but not some of the other people that I knew that had similar stories. And so just seeing God in it and those people is so
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, lifestyle questions. And I'm excited to hear your answer because I've never been to Oklahoma. It's one of those states that I've never been to, but I obviously need to go. Uh, But the first lifestyle question is, what is your favorite coffee shop? Obviously, now that I remember when you moved, so you're pretty far away, but what is your favorite coffee shop in the city that's closest to you in Oklahoma? And what's your go-to order?
Well, I feel like I have to say the coffee shop that is local, and I do love the local coffee shop, so I'm just gonna tell you, Lyft, um, is the coffee shop. It just has a cute little atmosphere that's really cozy. But my favorite drink is, and if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know what my favorite drink is. It is a venti brown sugar shaken espresso. And I'm going to tell you, it is so delicious. And you have to try it by, so I just get 1 pump of brown sugar and then I bring that puppy home, put it in my blender, and add 2 scoops of vanilla protein. And it's divine. I mean,
I'm
it will
shaken to my
change
core. Wait.
your life.
Oh my
Change
gosh.
your life. And you blend it up and it's just like delightful. Delightful.
Wow.
Yes.
That
And I have it in a
is
very beautiful glass. And I just romanticize my life every moment of the day. And so that is something that I enjoy.
that is so luxurious. Wow. Okay. So yeah. Oh, wow. All right. And I I need to make that happen because that just sounds incredible. And obviously, like I lick the bowl of all the protein shakes because it's just
Yes.
incredible. So incredible. I made the protein cake recipe and my roommate was like, "What's in this?" And I was like, "Just protein peanut butter, like some leavening agents." He's like, "That's it?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's like that good." So I can imagine with the brown sugar and the espresso and just blended beautifully at the right pulse that it would just be like amazing.
In a beautiful glass.
Yeah.
Enjoy your meal. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the other thing too that I love is you're drinking out of a wine glass for those that maybe couldn't
Yes.
see. There's not wine in it. There's no reason why you can't have a beautiful glass and be drinking something that's
Yep.
non-alcoholic. Like there's no
Yes.
reason.
Yes. No, you romanticize your day. I mean, one of my things is, why do we wait to use our china? I am
Mm,
just as important than my guests. So I want to enjoy my china too. So if I'm going to have some tea, I'm going to go in and find my favorite china
mm.
and have my tea from that cup. So I've just learned that's the state of just being in that state of abundance, as everything is abundant all the time. I'm going to enjoy my life today.
Wow. Yes. Oh, so beautiful. Last lifestyle question. What is a book that you've read multiple times and believe someone who's listening should read it too?
You know what? I saw that question. And that's a hard one for me because I read all the time. So obviously, multiple times would be the Bible, um, for sure. And I really don't know what, uh, I'm a huge fan of Bob Proctor. I love Bob Proctor. So anything Bob, read multiple times. Sean Maxwell, I love as well. He started my journey in leadership.
Mm.
But, those are probably, yeah. I mean, you should actually see all the books in that I've read, and I used to start a book and believe that I had to finish a book, and now I'm at the point where it's like, if you don't catch my attention the first 2 chapters, I'm outta here.
Yeah.
But I'm an avid reader. My husband's always that's the joke in our house. I can read 10 books to his one that he's never read. It's still on his desk. So, yeah,
And
I love you.
and she still has time to put her pink towel on and find stillness, everyone, okay?
That's right.
Oh my gosh. Yes, and my sister jokes. I didn't honestly start reading fiction until fairly recently, probably in the past couple of years, because I was so focused on growing and developing. And so, all those the personal growth books you can think of, reading them and now as a believer trying to find books that I feel like can also be, infusing my faith and challenging me there as well as growing me personally. So John Maxwell, I hope I get the opportunity to meet him one day. I just think we are very fortunate to have had him here on this planet and incredible leader. The amount of lives he's changed is insane.
Yes.
Insane. Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate this, and I hope you had a good time.
Great conversation. Amazing conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's, like I said, an honor and just humbling, and also get to this opportunity to get to have one-on-one and get to know your story more. And for the audience that has never met you, that, doesn't know about our business, but can get to hear your story, and how can they be a part of what you're doing? And I'll actually write all those things out in the show notes, but where can they find you?
Instagram at Deanna Herrin, Herrin would probably be the best. My website is currently being revamped as we have grown and evolved and rebranded. So that would not be the best place right now because it's just a hot mess. But it'll be ready in a few weeks, probably about 4 weeks. But at Deanna Herrin on Instagram, yeah, follow
Yeah.
me and say hi. Let me
Amazing.
know that you listen to the show.
Amazing. And if you can just give a couple bullet points, what are some of the um, coaching opportunities, or you had mentioned, you're stepping into that marriage
Mhm.
educational space. What are a couple things that people can just hear that would make them more curious to find more information?
So what I do is I coach women specifically. I've got so many men that are coming to me right now. My heart is for women. It always has been. That's what I did when I was practicing medicine. Um, but I've got to find a spot for men too. But what I coach through is our relationship with our thoughts. Period. And so you think about what is your relationship with your thoughts when it comes to business? What is your relationship to your thoughts when it comes to money? What's your relationship to your thoughts when it comes to relationships?
Mm.
What's your relationship to your thoughts when it comes to God? So it encompasses a lot of different things. And for years and years in my business, I've had so many women say, I wish you would do something on marriage. And I never did because our marriage isn't perfect. And there was a hesitation there to really dive into that. But there has been some massive healing in our relationship over really the last 2 years. Um, and we went through something that just kind of turned us upside down in March of 2023. And it made us really reevaluate a lot of things. And through that process, I was able to look at my marriage relation. I'd been working on my thoughts, but now let's look at the thoughts in my relationship with my marriage. So all the work that I do, it transfers into every relationship in your life. And I started to really look at my husband very differently. So instead of why is he doing these things? Why doesn't he just change? I started to look at what my part is. And that's a very humble, hard place to be.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you that it changed everything. It changed me more. It changed my husband more. The energy of our marriage is completely different. And it's because, like I said, every relationship is here to tell us something and to heal us. And I started to look at that in my marriage and go, whoa, I've got a lot of healing that I have to do within this relationship to really understand myself more.
Yeah.
And so just ridding myself of the resentment and the frustration. And, when I look at our relationship now, I'm always asking myself, okay, what am I making this mean about me? And that's where the story begins. So that's what I do in a nutshell is it's your relationship with your thoughts. And we have a war going on in our mind constantly. And a lot of women have just a tornado of thoughts. Like they can't even think anything else. And it's just this swirling, swirling, swirling. And so being able to calm that and give you the ability to really go inside and unbecome those stories to really find out who you are and why you're here.
So incredible. And I also, it kind of hit me while you're talking, like what a gift you're giving your kids as well. I mean, you've already done so much to showcase them. They watched you be an entrepreneur, and you and your husband make exchanges and sacrifices and create just a strong work ethic. But then to now, as they're both, one is married and one's about to get married, what a gift you're going to give them of being able to watch you and your husband work through it and navigate it. And then you're going to give this gift to other people. So it's so incredible, Deanna. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Incredible.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You got
It's an honor to be on here with you. Thank you so much.
seriously. Oh, I'm tickled. I wish we could talk forever, but we cannot. We have things to do. But thank you so much. And you guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Share this episode with whoever you feel needs to hear this. There was literally 75 things, I think, that would relate to 75 different people, whether you're a man or a woman, that I believe that someone will be blessed by. So share this episode. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok. This episode will be on YouTube. So follow us on YouTube. And as always, do good things, make me proud, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.